What is going on, and welcome back to SDS. We are finally here. We made it to lesson number 450, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. So, in case you're watching this, this is going to be posted to the YouTube channel, as well as it's going to be posted to the members area in the vault. Of course, this is a 5 lesson series, so this is the end of that series. So if you're watching this and you haven't watched the other 4 parts, you're getting the tail end of this. But we're going to be talking about beat displacement, and I'm pumped about this because this is one of my favorite topics. I wrote a book called Functioning in Time, and it talks about permutation. Permutation is just a big fancy name for beat displacement, and I thought, hey, what better for lesson number 450 than something that I like doing anyway. So I do have to say a huge thank you to you guys. This is now my official full-time job and has been for quite some time. I consider it a huge honor to be able to do this and get up every day and come up with lessons and content that help encourage you guys and ladies. And so I don't take that for granted. So thank you very much. I'm gonna not get sappy anymore. If you got any questions, what's up, Kyle? If you got any questions, you can shoot them in here on the chat board. I'll take those as they come in. And if not, we're gonna launch into the lesson. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you won't have the sheet music, but that's okay. I'm going to explain it so well you'll be able to follow along. So we've been talking about beat displacement, and this is kind of the culmination. We have this groove. I'll explain the groove in just a second. And what we've done is we've taken each individual part of that groove. So we've taken the hi-hat part, then we took the snare part, then we took the kick drum part, and we moved each one. So while the snare and the kick drum stayed static, the hi-hat part would move across what we call a grid of 16th notes. So for every time we moved it or permutated it, or displaced it if you want to call it that, we would move it 1/16th note over in that whole pattern. So for instance, the whole hi-hat line would move over. Now we're gonna take the whole beat and displace it. Now here's the beat that we're working with. All right, really the right and the left hand are mirror images of each other, and once you've kind of permutated them enough, you actually see that they're doing the same thing. It's just at different times within the bar. But the sticking is going to go right, left, left, right, and then we'll reverse that. Left accent on the backbeat, right, right, left. Everything's a ghost note except for 2 and 4. Now, the important thing to know about this beat in particular is it's a 2-beat groove. And so it's only gonna permutate 8 times, because once it permutates half the measure or displaces itself half the measure, it sounds the same, because beats 1 and 2 look exactly like beats 3 and 4. So if we're just looking at the hands, this is what they look like. We add some kick drum to that. We're gonna add the kick drum on beats 1 and the upbeat of beat 2. So beats 1 and the and of 2. 1 and 2 and since it's a 2-beat groove, that'll also repeat for beats 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. That's gonna be the groove that we're working with. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this groove and we're gonna start it on different parts of the beat. So your sheet music is gonna look a little different than I'm explaining. So if you look at A, the pattern is gonna look a little bit different. But what I want you to do is cover up that first 16th note, that first snare hit, and what you'll see is that pattern starts on the E of 1. Instead of starting on the downbeat, it starts on the E of 1. So what we've done is we've effectively displaced the beat 1/16th note. Now I'm going to do that slowly, and I'm not going to take a lot of time to go into breaking the groove down every displacement, because we've kind of done that with the last 4 lessons. But if you watch this, you'll be able to catch what we're doing. And all we're doing is we're starting this pattern, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left. We're starting that on different parts of the beat, and it's going to displace the beat. We need to keep in mind we have two things we need to hear. We need to hear what the listeners hear. So as Gavin Harrison would call our A time and our A sound and our B sound. The A sound is where we actually are. So you're actually hearing, you're actually counting and keeping track of where one is. So you know what the pattern sounds like in that. But then the B is what the listener is hearing. And what they're hearing is a displaced beat. Okay, and so you have to keep in mind what's going on, and it's just not just a bunch of jumbled notes. There's actually logic to what we're doing. If you don't count, you're going to see me count a lot, and I'm going to be counting out loud, and the reason is because I want to ingrain in you, you have to count out loud, you have to count through this whole exercise, because if you play the game of lose the bass player, or where's one instead of where's Waldo, you're going to lose if you don't count, right? You won't just lose the bass player, you'll lose yourself. So it's really important if you want to pull this off in a live setting that you know exactly where you are, and you can at any point come out of it and get the band back on track if they happen to get off. You want to be careful where you use this, but this can be a really fun tool to use if you have some competent players around you. All right, let's go at 70 BPM, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to start it on the E of 1, all right? So that's what we're doing. We're creating an illusion that the beat has actually gone somewhere, but it really hasn't. We're still in that same time. The downbeat never changes. We're just starting our pattern on a different part of the beat. It becomes a lot more obvious whenever we use something like a ride cymbal. So if I were to add some accents to this beat, you could really hear it come out. Okay, so right there I'm going in between the regular time and the displaced time, or the permutated pattern. That's going to be A on your sheet music. If we sped that up a little bit, let's see what it sounds like. So that's just our first displacement. We have 6 more of those to go. So we always have our basic time. And what you'll see me do with these exercises is I'm going to be referring back to that basic time. I'll play some time with the basic pattern, then I'll go to the new permutated or displaced pattern. The reason I like permutation is because it's a more exact word. Displaced just means, okay, well, what does displaced mean? Permutation is actually a mathematical concept. And in a permutation, order and repetition matter. So the order that the notes come in, and there can't be any repeating elements. In other words, we keep the same structure. We're just moving it across a grid. That's why I like the word permutation. It's a little bit more exact than just displaced to the beat, because that could be the whole pattern stays the same except the backbeat and you displace the backbeat. But that's a different type of permutation. Permutating the whole beat means a different thing, so you can get more exact with it. Mike says, my ghost notes always sound too loud. Any tips on how to improve that? Derek says he's lost. Mookers, what's up, man? Yeah, if you didn't catch the first 4 lessons, you might be lost, but just watch this whole lesson, because what you're going to be able to do is ingest exactly what beat displacement is. As far as ghost notes, making those softer, man, I went through that myself, and these grooves, they really suck if you don't really concentrate on getting those ghost notes down. So what I would do, I did a couple of things. Specifically when I was in college, and still to this day, outside of my practice room, I actually have a mirror. I can open the door and it's hanging on a wall, and I can see, when I've got the door open, I can actually see a side view of myself. And so I would measure up how far I wanted my stick to come for my ghost note. So if I wanted it to come up an inch or 2 inches, and then I would go, okay, well, my ghost notes are an inch to 2 inches above the head. My accents are going to be, 12 inches. And then I would sometimes even kind of measure the height, and I would go over and I would mark with a marker actually on the mirror. And that way I could see, if you use a dry erase marker, you can erase it. I could actually see how high my stick height was coming, and I could start to control those ghost notes, not just by listening to like, okay, my volume's too loud. I could actually do it physically by saying, okay, if the stick comes up 4 inches, it's naturally going to be louder than if it comes up 2 inches. So that's going to be one thing that can help you. The other thing, there's two other things that I did. I exaggerate all of my dynamic marking. So if something's marked, piano, I'm going to play a pianissimo. I'm going to play it like triple piano. I'm going to be way down there. You'll be able to hear it. Whereas if it's mezzo forte, I may play it a little below mezzo forte, or I may play it a little above mezzo forte, but I'm going to play my loud stuff really super freaking loud, and I'm going to play my soft stuff really soft, because something that we don't pay attention enough with in our drumming and our playing in general is dynamics. And that really separates like the bosses from the guys that are just, they're okay. Like that dynamic level of, this is an interesting thing, but this is way more interesting. That's way more interesting when we add those dynamics. So I'm going to exaggerate all of my dynamic markings. The third thing I did is certain practice days, I would have designated not just what I was going to be practicing, but I would have designated the dynamic level I was going to be practicing at. So I'd say, okay, I got a 3-hour practice session. Everything is going to be piano. Or everything's going to be mezzo piano or mezzo forte. And I would really start to get ingrained in my head being able to do, because sometimes it's a matter of you can't pull off that lick or that sticking at that dynamic level. Sometimes that's the problem. So that's what I would do. Get a mirror to watch stick height, exaggerate the dynamic markings, and then designate certain practice days as piano days or fortissimo days. Now, let's look at B here. If you look at B, what we're going to do is we're going to move this, displace it, or permutate it. We're going to do it a whole eighth note, or if we're looking at that, a lot of marching drummers will call that a grid. So you have 16 lines, and you're moving it along that 16th note grid. So we've moved it over 2 16th notes, and that would equal 1/8 note. So we're going to start the pattern on the and of 1. You see how I'm counting the whole entire time. Counting, counting, counting. You can't ever lose one. You just can't. Sometimes what I would do is I would actually turn the click way, way down to where I could barely hear it. And that way, when I'm counting, if I really get lost, I can pull back. Because I'm just going to tell you, practicing this, I don't care what anybody tells you, you go and get lost. Like, that's just a fact of the matter. At some point, you're going to get lost. You have to stop and go, okay, where was one? All right, now I found one. And you start again. But that's how we learn this. Now, the way we've worked through this pattern by moving each individual element it makes it easier because we're super familiar with this pattern now. All right, so that's the reason we worked through this 4 lessons up to this point. And if you're looking in the vault for these in the members area, that's lesson 446, 447, 448, 449, and this is 450. All right, let's look at C. C, we're moving it 3/16 notes. This is what the English call a bugga. This one is somewhat hard. So we're starting on the of 1. 1 EN, a 2 EN, a 3 EN, a 4 EN, a 1 EN, a 2. That's where our downbeat's going to be. 70 BPM. Right, so we've started that. Instead of starting it on the and, we started it on the Just think of this pattern as one big brick, and we're just moving it. Pretend that you have 1 E and a, 2 E and a, all spread out, and that brick just moves lines. And now we're on that 3rd line, so we started on the of 1. You want to know what the hardest one is? The hardest one is when you turn the beat completely around, and that's the next one on D. We're actually going to be starting the beat on 2, which is going to put the back beat on 3 and 4, so the beat will be completely turned around. Now that's in my head, and I can only tell you from my experience of working through these things. In my head, that's always the hardest. Like, okay, I'm completely reversing the beat, and for some reason your ear hears downbeat and wants to count 2, and your head says no, that's 2 is actually 1, and then you just got to train yourself. All right, so I'm going to do it at 70 BPM. We're starting the pattern on 2, but you need to count the back beats as what? 1 and 3. Oh, sorry about that. Now, if we do that a little bit faster, let's go up to 100 BPM. So when you speed these up, these are actually a lot of fun, though, at slow tempos. So don't just think, oh, they got to speed up to be fun. No, the pattern can be just mid-tempo. This is fun at 80 BPM. And what this is going to really help you with your grasp of where 1 is. It's going to help you because I struggled with that for you. I know that sounds, seriously, I didn't count for years. I just was relying on my ears. And when you start studying more advanced concepts like displacing the beat, you can't rely on just going, oh, well, sounds like. You got to count. Otherwise, you are lost. All right, let's go to E. E, we've effectively moved it over. If you got any questions, shoot those in. We've effectively moved it over at this point 5/16 notes. So it's starting on the E of 2. This would probably be in my book one of the harder ones. Without completely reversing the beat, this would be one of the harder ones. So we're going to start on the E of 2, 70 BPM. So that's displacing it all the way over on the E of 2. All right. As you can see, it gets hairier every time, and it really works on counting. Mooker says my counting sucks. I need to force myself to practice that. That's something I had to. That's something I had to sit down and really just say, okay, bro, you got to practice this. So every practice session, I would spend the whole time. I would actually hold up progress in certain areas, simply because I couldn't count something I was playing. I might be able to play it, You may be like, yeah, I can play that, but I couldn't count while I was playing it. And I would actually go, okay, we're not going any further until I can count this. And that's part of what separates like the pros from the sort. Not calling myself like some super player, but these type of practice habits, that's what separates the fantastic from the we're just okay, is they have very specific goals when they're practicing. So they may have a pattern, but they can't count that pattern. So the goal for that day is I will count that pattern. By learning to count that pattern, your overall counting gets better. You feel like I'm holding up progress here, but you're really not. What you're doing is improving yourself in other ways so that you can actually move faster and quicker through some other exercises. But I wrestled with counting for years. I just wouldn't do it. I remember, and I've told the story before, in big band, if any of my friends watch this video, they'll remember. In big band in college, I would come out literally with sweat-stained rings all over. I had to start wearing 2 shirts because I was sweating so much, because I would get so embarrassed from the guy calling me out and say, Steven, you're not counting. Steve, you're not counting. Because we'd have these, and they'd be like, hey, Steven, set that up. And it'd come to it, and it'd just like speed past me. And I just missed the whole thing because I wasn't counting. So I know where you're at, trust me. All right, let's look at F. F is going to start this pattern on the upbeat of 2, so the and of 2. 1E and a 2E, and 70 BPM. 2, 3, 4, 1E and a 2. So now we've moved it over 3/8 notes or 6/16 notes. Now, the last one we have is G. This is going to be our last permutation. And all we're doing there is we're starting it on the of 2. So we're starting that same pattern. We're starting that on the of 2. So you really don't need sheet music for this lesson. All you need to do is learn that first pattern that I showed you, and then put the book away and go, okay, I'm going to start trying to practice this rhythm on the E of 1 or the of 2, right? So that's what we need to do. The only reason I have the sheet music written out for you is so that you can see what that looped pattern looks like whenever it's really written out. This is a section for my book, Functioning in Time. I've told some of you that in case you have that book already. If you don't, you can get it on the website. Or you can, if you're a member, you have this sheet music that'll go along with this lesson. So let me play G. We're going to be starting on the of 2. 70 BPM. Jump the gun there. All right, let's start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1E and 2E. So that's the last one, starting on the of 2. Now what do we do once we get all of these? Well, I'm going to speed this up just a little bit, and I'm going to play through every one of these starting on the different parts of the beat. Now what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to play a crash cymbal with every one, okay? Because that's sometimes when you're playing through this, the cool thing about displacing a beat is you don't state where the new 1 is, you simply displace it. So I'm going to start doing that, so try to keep up with where we are, but I'm going to do 4 measures, and then I'll do the displacement for 4 measures, then come back to basic. So we'll be doing basic groove, then A 4 times, basic groove, B 4 times, etc. and so forth. 90 BPMs where we're going to be playing this. 1, 2, 3, 4. that's going through all of them, putting them, kind of juxtaposing them back to the basic groove. Now, if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot those in because we're kind of winding up the lesson. Now, what's fun is whenever you start to get this down and then you go, okay, now I'm just going to play around, and I'm just going to play around starting this groove on different parts of the beat and see if I can just go in and out of it. And that's where kind of true mastery of this thing starts. And so what I would be doing, I would be playing basic groove, and I'd go, I'm going to start it on the E of 1. And maybe I'd do a fill into the E of 1, maybe I'd crash into it, maybe I wouldn't. But you want to get comfortable going in and out of these, and then stating the basic time, going in and out of them, stating that this is my in and out motion. I don't know, I just decided that's my in and out motion. I'd never done an in and out motion like that whenever it comes to going in and out of beat displacements. There's new stuff every day. All right, 100 BPM is what I'm going to be doing this at, and I'm just going to kind of go in between some of these. Here we go. So just by taking some of those simple concepts and going, okay, I'm going to start on the and of 1, I'm going to start on the downbeat of 2, you can start to kind of function with these displacements. Now again, if you're just watching this on YouTube, you wouldn't have seen the other 4 that go with this. And if you're just tuning in the lessons and you haven't called in the other live ones, I encourage you, go back and watch the other ones, because we've been working through this concept this whole week, just really trying to dissect this somewhat of a simple, and really if you look at it, it's just a paradiddle that's shifted over. If you cover up the first note of the hands, you'll see it's just a reversed paradiddle. So let's see if we got any questions. Nope, looks like we're all good. If you have any questions, again, you can contact us at questionsandanswers@stevensdrumshed.com, or you can get on here during a live lesson, shoot those questions to me. You can hang out with everybody like they're doing right now. A lot of times it has nothing to do with the lesson. Or you can call the studio. We're here all the time. That's what we're here for. And if not, go practice. We'll catch you the next lesson.